Hi, David. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Susie. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and I look forward to talking about this topic.
All right, let's get going. Well, we know that many of our clients find the estate planning process intimidating. As someone who has worked in this area for many years, what's the biggest pitfall or mistake that you see clients make?
By far, I think the biggest is ignoring the topic entirely and not putting an estate plan together to address it. Now, the question is, why do folks avoid it? I think there are a few reasons why. First, nobody likes to think about the inevitable, and so not addressing the issue is certainly a way to avoid thinking about that. But there are some other reasons as well. Perhaps they're not comfortable sharing financial information with their children. Maybe they fear their children aren't prepared to inherit wealth. Maybe they're unwilling to give up control to the next generation. Maybe they're worried about upsetting some family members. Some may think that it's too complicated or that you don't need one because the word estate itself means that it's only relevant for the very wealthy. But for many, it doesn't really need to be that complicated. Good asset titling, beneficiary designations, and a will are the basics. Some may want to add a revocable trust. Now, although the process can seem intimidating, a good professional can help you navigate it.
All right, so great considerations, and clearly not planning is a big pitfall. So let's talk about some other things to watch out for. Many clients worry about the possibility of paying estate taxes. How important is it to plan for this risk?
Yeah, this relates to really one of the pitfalls I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is making the process overly complex. It's important if it affects you. And this is because at the federal level, the unified gift and estate tax, the rate is 40%. However, the federal exemption for 2026 is $15 million per person and will adjust for inflation going forward. What that means is that as long as your assets are below that level when you pass, there's no federal estate tax applicable. Now, one word of caution. Residents of several states and the District of Columbia may have a state, estate, or inheritance tax that you need to consider, and this may come at lower levels of exemption. So, for example, Massachusetts has a $2 million exemption. But some people may not need to worry about estate taxes at all. I'm a big fan of simplicity. Sometimes tax planning can create unnecessary complexity in the overall process. I like to use first, simpler techniques to get money out of your estate during life. So, for example, in addition to that federal exemption, each year you can give away $19,000 per person to anyone you want. It's gift and estate tax free. So if you think about a married couple, they can give double that, $38,000. Let's say they have 3 children. Let's say over a 20-year period, say between age 65 and 85, they can get nearly $2.28 million out of their estate. If the children were married and they wanted to include gifts to those children's spouses, that amount would increase. If there were also grandchildren, that would increase even more. Finally, payments directly to schools, medical providers, and front-loading 529 plans are all techniques that also avoid gift and estate tax. But you can see that a lot of money can be transferred out without ever having to consider gift or estate taxes or complex trust structures.
Well, when it comes to the execution of your plan, there are various roles to fill, and for some people, it's hard to choose. What mistakes do you see clients make in this area?
Yes, there are absolutely pitfalls when it comes to selecting the team that's going to help you through this. I think the key is understanding the responsibilities of these important roles, so let's review them. So the first is a durable power of attorney. This is someone who can make financial and legal decisions during those times when you can no longer handle these independently. Similarly, a healthcare power of attorney, sometimes called a healthcare proxy. This is an individual who's going to make decisions about your medical care. Obviously, at these times in life, it can be very emotional, and you want someone who has the capacity to take on those decisions. An executor. The executor is responsible for managing the affairs of and settling an estate. This includes initiating court procedures, filing the deceased's final tax return. Executors are generally named in a will. And then finally, a trustee. So if you do have a trust, you're going to have a trustee. Trustees act as the legal owner of the trust's assets, and they're responsible for handling any assets held in the trust. This means custodianship, investment management, also doing tax filings for the trust, and ultimately distributing the assets according to the terms of the trust. Now, Often, we choose people that don't really have the will or the skill to carry out these duties. Therefore, some key questions to consider include: does the person have the time to fulfill the role effectively? What's the person's relationship to beneficiaries, and will they be able to make objective decisions in the beneficiary's best interest? Does the person live convenient to where all these activities are going to take place? How old will the person be when asked to take on the role? And will they have the same capacity as they do today? Finally, administering an estate can be stressful and potentially require difficult decisions. So, key question: does the person have the ability to successfully navigate challenging interpersonal situations, especially amongst family members?
All right. Well, some clients may hesitate to create their estate plan because they worry about family dynamics, as you mentioned. So, what are the risks of not communicating your plans?
I think not discussing your plan with your loved ones is potentially a big mistake. Estates are made up of many things, not just financial assets. I think about heirlooms. These are included in your estate, and with respect to these, perhaps possessions find a happier home with the individual who actually wants and will appreciate them. For others, without a conversation, you could potentially open up the estate to litigation, general family discord. A way to think about it is sometimes it's very helpful for people to understand why we make the decisions that we do. No one wants their legacy to be one of disappointment or confusion, and so having these conversations sort of clear the air, so to speak. Oftentimes we talk about voice versus vote. It's your money. You have the absolute vote on what's going to happen to it, but sometimes it's beneficial to hear the voice of the people that will ultimately inherit.
Voice versus vote, very clear. Well, once you have a plan and you've talked to all parties involved, have you managed to steer clear of all the major pitfalls?
Unfortunately not. One other big mistake we see is not revisiting your plan. Look, life changes. Babies are born, people pass, marriages, divorces, and so you want your estate plan to reflect how life is changing over time. Second, laws change. So in 2017, we had the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. That changed some of the lifetime exemptions that I spoke of earlier. And so you just want to be constantly aware of the legal landscape. Finally, financial positions change. You might have a windfall. Maybe you inherited money from somebody else. And so you want to make sure that your estate plan is constantly considering these developments in life. I think there are a couple simple things that we can do in the meantime to help everyone begin this journey. One is simply get organized, work with a financial professional to develop an accurate and complete net worth statement. And the second is review your titling and beneficiary designations, going back to that concept of simplicity, and make sure they align with your wishes.
All right. Well, thank you for the simple tactics there and all these terrific insights, David.
Thank you for having me.
If you want help with your estate plan, reach out to your Fidelity representative. If you don't have a Fidelity representative, visit fidelity.com/findinadvisor. And for more timely news and thinking from Fidelity's top thought leaders, subscribe to Insights from Fidelity Wealth Management. I'm Susie Allen. Join me again soon.